Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming here in person to Little Theater and also to our families at home on the webinar. We are here as a special education department and our administration is here. So I'm going to just do some introductions first. We have our interim director, Mary Pat Publicover here. My name is Ann Suter. I'm one of the supervisors of special education. My roles specifically look at the ICR classroom, the resource center classroom, the LLD classroom, as well as the reading program.
Okay. And I'm Scott Rebholz. I am the other special ed supervisor. My specific domain is the paraprofessional staff, as well as our self-contained programs, our ABA program, our EQUIPS program, 18 to 21 program, as well as our alternate program.
So tonight we're going to talk a little bit about what it means to come to Central. And what I think is so cool is that we have two Central graduates here. So welcome again. But also in addition to that, we'll talk a little bit about your student or your child that's coming in and it is going to be the class of 2029. And I don't know about you, but when I see that, I think like, wow. So I feel invigorated, hopeful, but also a little nervous because, you know, 2029 is close to 2030 and, you know, so on and so forth. But those are going to be your students, your children coming in and making their way and learning all about what they can do here at Hunterdon Central. So tonight what we're going to review is we're going to review a continuum of services. Essentially, we are partnering with our sister districts, and that's where you're coming from with Flemrare, Flemington Raritan, Reddington, Delaware, and Amwell Township schools. And we work with them to talk about the continuum of services, so what we offer here and how we can have your child transition to HCRHS in the world of our large school, but also within the world of special education. We'll talk about a transitional IEP process that you have been engaging in the IEP process for many years. This is going to be a little different because you're transitioning from your current districts to a larger regional district. And we are talk about scheduling. Scheduling is going to be a little different this year than it has been in the past because we are using a student information system, which is Genesis. We're going to talk about high school graduation requirements because, as I said, 2029, although it seems like it's far in the distance, I can relate as a parent that time flies and it'll probably be here before we know it. But for sure, freshman year is going to be here before we know it. And after school opportunities. So we're going to talk a little bit about all of these things in relation to Hunterdon Central Regional High School, but specifically how we support students that have IEPs and various different needs. So we'll dive right in. So when we talk about the continuum of services, we're really talking about what does the classroom for your child look like? And because we look at individualized education plans, we're looking at what an individual student needs. And so I'm going to talk about the general gist of things and just know that every person, every child is going to be different and they're going to fit somewhere in this continuum. So in the larger circle, we have general education. It really is following our general education CP classroom and the curricula within there, within those classrooms. We have college prep, but we also have college prep in-class resource, which means that you have a general education teacher as well as a special education teacher. General education academic assistance is a little bit different, and you can see the circles kind of get a bit smaller because what it's really representing is that we're offering a more supportive environment. We are looking at some curriculum changes as those circles get smaller, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that in a little bit in future slides. So academic assistance is still a rigorous program. You're still looking at shadowing the curriculum. You're looking at completing, you know, various different novels and books in English and understanding, you know, earth and environmental science or biology. And so you're really shadowing that curriculum. You're exposed to all of those concepts. The difference in academic assistance between that and general education college prep is that we're looking at having less of the curriculum, reviewed in that classroom. So for example, we may review 8 units in a CP class in English or biology. And in general, in the academic assistance, you might review 6. The pacing is going to be slower. We're going to talk again about that a little bit. As we move into the resource setting, we're looking at actually changing the structure. And so now we're looking at going from a 2-teacher model, which was in ICR General Ed, if that is the program that is being picked. ICR Academic Assistance, those both have 2 teachers, a special ed and a general ed teacher. But now in resource room, we're looking at a smaller class setting. We're looking at a more modified curriculum. And it really is shadowing the curriculum of the general ed. It's small in that up to 9 students. They can have just 1 special education teacher. After 9 students, we have a special ed teacher as well as a paraprofessional. And so again, as that environment shifts, the needs of the students are shifting as well.
And like Annie had mentioned earlier, we have on-ramps within each of these settings. In the spirit of least restrictive, we constantly want to challenge students to move into more academically rigorous programs. So if they start off in a resource room, they have the option, if they do well and they're successful and the child study team agrees, that they can move up into those higher levels. So there's off ramps on all of these things. So like Annie said, you can kind of mix and match depending on your child's individual learning profile.
Yeah. And it's really important to us to treat your child as an individual. And so we'll talk a little bit about that in the least restrictive environment and being able to really grow their strengths, identify weaknesses, and through their IEP as well as their program, give them the supports that they need, to Scott's point. As we go into a different direction, there's also something called Learning Center. It's also referenced in some of your districts as the LLD classroom. It's shadowing the general education and the resource curriculum, but we're looking at the pacing being much slower, the individualization being far greater. We're looking at a smaller teacher to student ratio often. Again, after 9, we usually have a paraprofessional with 1 special education teacher. After Learning Center, we're looking at self-contained programs. And so these programs are highly individualized because we are absolutely looking at, again, the needs of the child. And it's a low student to teacher / para ratio. And the self-contained programs, I'll let Scott just review a little bit because he oversees those.
Right. And this process is going to look very different because with the self-contained students, we are doing a lot more observation of the student, interacting a lot more with the child study team to ensure that we absolutely get it correct. So generally speaking, students in this program, there's an academic component, but there's also a life skills component as well. So a lot of these students, they'll start off in our Equips program, and they'll move into our 18 to 21 program where they are out in the community. We have about 40 to 45 community partners. So once you are 18 years old, you graduate high school, you're entitled to education until you're up to 21. So the way that looks like is you are doing life skills in the morning, and in the afternoon, you are out in the community with everything from restaurants to retailers to nonprofits, getting valuable work experience. Our Equips program is designed to get them there. So we typically have the academics in the morning, and then we have life skills and work skills in the afternoon. And then I'll get into it later, but we also have a really robust inclusionary program. We also have our ABLE program, which runs discrete trials in the ABA room. This is highly, highly individualized. If you've never seen ABA and discrete teaching, it is unlike anything you've ever seen. Some of the most talented people in education end up in that room. And then we have our alternate program, Project Trust. This is not something we typically recommend for freshmen, simply because when you end up in Project Trust, it's because we've exhausted every other option. It's basically an alternate program that really focuses on the social emotional as well as the academics. And again, before anyone enters into a program like that, there are extensive conversations with the child study team, the parents, etc.
And so we offer the profiles just to give you an idea. Sometimes and by the way, we're going to share these slides. I believe they're going to be shared to our website along with the webinar recording. So you can go back and reference this. So I'm going to just go over this. I won't read these. but it kind of gives you an idea of what a general education student in ICR or unsupported in general ed, what some attributes look like. Often they're very motivated, they can do things independently, they understand the rigor of homework, their comprehension is a solid strength. I often talk about the learning profile of all of our children are unique. And so students in this kind of setting often have processing speed that is average or above. And because we're going through things at a very good clip in these classrooms, that processing speed and working memory and that learning profile, when you talk about your child, or when you go back to the district and you talk about the strengths and the needs of your child, you're looking at some of these specifics so that a student in this classroom they're often finding success because their learning profile lends that to them. Now, don't get me wrong, there can be, your child can have splintered skills or some areas of strength, let's say in English, and may not need support, but math is an area of challenge and might have a specific learning disability. So at all times, we can ebb and flow and give supports where those strengths and weaknesses are. Academic assistant students, those students just need more support. They need their processing speed, their working memory might be below average, but just a little bit below average. They have comprehension, they have solid comprehension abilities, but they make things at a slower pace. And because of that, that is such a perfect classroom. Their academic, I guess, focus is one that they aren't quite there yet with understanding the seriousness of homework, and they need a lot more help and a lot more scaffolding from the teachers. In the resource room, we're looking at a student that really needs specialized curriculum. And so, yes, we're following the curriculum that is taught in the general ed and the academic assistance, but just know that in this environment, we're able to meet the students where they are, offer them less of the scope that is in that larger curriculum, and really work on the skills and concepts that they need. But again, with that smaller student to teacher ratio, which is specific to that. And also processing for a student in this classroom might be a challenge. It might not be. You know your child best. So when you go back to the district and you talk about your child during their transition IEP meeting, you can talk about, what we've talked about this evening with the learning profile and maybe how he or she may interact with some of these classrooms or the curriculum within these classrooms. In the Learning Center, again, we're looking at having students that need much more scaffolding, their processing speed and working memory, their learning profile overall lends itself to needing more specialized instruction. So we're following some of the curriculum, but we're following it at the student's level. So we're in the resource room, we're following it more towards the middle school or the on grade level. In the Learning Center, we're really sometimes scaffolding concepts based on your child's needs at their level. So it could be very well that, again, they have strengths in English and they're in a higher level, maybe a resource English class, but their needs are really showing and demonstrating that they need some support, scaffolded instruction, as well as modified instruction in the Learning Center. And then in self-contained, it's very individualized. And so for a variety of reasons, right? So everybody can show their strengths and their needs through a variety of different ways. What I'm talking about right now is specifically through a psychological evaluation. Usually it's the WISP at the middle school level, or the educational evaluation, which is often the WJ, currently the WJ4. And so those two evaluations help us kind of determine learning profile, but just know that this gives us a pinpoint of information and helps us know where to start. It doesn't tell your child's whole story. And that's why you and the case manager are such excellent partners in this. So you want to talk a little bit about the curriculum and how it's modified in various different ways?
Yeah, so generally speaking, we try and follow the curriculum, but in the self-contained program, the state testing requirements are very individualized for the students. So we follow what's called the essential elements. We try and find that balance where we have really individualized instruction, but at the same time, we're providing those on-ramps for the students who are going to move up levels. So again, highly individualized, but we do try and follow the same content as their general ed peers.
So, maybe I'm going to show you some. Are there any questions?
Yeah, so I know that's a lot to digest. Thus far, that's kind of the macro view. We'll kind of narrow down. But any questions about what this looks like in practice? Anything that we need to explain in greater detail?
And if the answer is no, we can continue going, and then you can ask questions at the end. Email us, call us.
And the reason we do this is, especially with some of the smaller sending districts, they don't have the level or the number of levels that we have. So when we go to these transitional meetings, oftentimes you'll have a case manager there from Hunterdon Central, and it's really to provide guidance for those questions of a student who might be in between some of those levels. So we are not part of the child study team when we attend those meetings, but we are there as kind of to provide some guidance.
So the transitional process is something that you'll experience this year. You will attend your son or daughter's IEP meeting with the case manager in your district, and they will talk about the schedule, the program that the student or your child is currently in, and talking about that continuum of services. Again, kind of what we reviewed with from that CP environment all the way to those self-contained environments. You will probably be invited to these meetings in January, February, March. The partners here at Hunterdon Central, which are the case managers, are going to do their very best to attend every one of those transitional meetings. There are times that there's a conflict with schedules and that can't happen, but note that there's articulation in other ways, through phone calls, and then also there are times that Scott and I will talk to sending district families as well as teachers and case managers. So at this meeting, you're going to obviously talk about how your child's doing at the current time, but also about what's going to come as they transition to the high school. You're going to review teacher course recommendations, and this is a very salient point or important point. You are going to want to walk away with the course suggestions from your IEP meeting, from your child's IEP meeting. And the reason why that's important, and especially for the core academic areas, is that they're going to make, again, a lot of suggestions, and we did a lot of review of what kind of programs there are, but the case managers are going to say, oh yeah, no, your son or daughter might need the EQUIP program, or your son or daughter really sounds like they need more ICR supports. And so it's important that when you sit down, you write down the course codes that are making that suggestion. And not to worry, I have a course code cheat sheet, and I also have a cheat sheet for you, or a parent kind of like, I guess, dictionary of some of these terms I'm throwing at you, because it can be overwhelming. So I will absolutely be sharing this information, whether it's through our website or through your emails. Review the program of studies. What is kind of fun and exciting is I can tell you that in January, our principal, along with some of our staff here, are going to be holding a parent, like an 8th grade transition night. So I really encourage you to come that night, because we're going to talk about electives and really, give you a little bit more of the scope and sequence of what it's like. So bring your, upcoming 9th graders along with you for that evening. And I want to say it's January 16th, but to be determined, that will be put on our webpage. So you're going to get directions from the counseling department here. Actually, I think it's actually IT, our IT department. And that'll be the online Genesis portal instructions. And they'll be emailed to you, and you'll get online, your login and password. You want to identify at some point prior to the scheduling process what the electives are. And so you definitely want to talk about that with your child. And that's why coming on the 16th would be really a neat experience for everyone, because then you can kind of get more of a bird's eye view of what it really all the electives we have, because we have so many and they're excellent. And so at some point, you're going to be getting those directions, and then you're gonna schedule your child online.
Now, when we talk about scheduling, you're basically putting in your course preferences. So with the high school scheduling, it is incredibly complicated. So you'll put in your top 3 or 4 preferences, and basically the computer will do its work and do its best to match. But the nice thing is you've got 4 years to take a lot of these courses. So it all comes out in the wash normally, but again, you're putting in especially for the electives, the courses that are preferred. And again, the guidance counselors do their best to kind of make it work with the schedule.
And this is just an overview of what we talked about. If you need assistance, we're here for you. So always go back to your district and see if the case manager or counselor can help you identify any of those solutions to roadblocks. But there's also a scheduling at hcrhs.org email that you can send, and it goes to our counseling department, and the counseling department will help decipher and figure out what the needs are through those emails. So there's a lot of help, and we're here to support you. This talks a little bit about selecting classes. Selection with an A indicates ICR, in-class resource. You're going to get that from the case manager. A selection with S prefix is going to be a resource class. And again, I have a course cheat sheet for you, so don't worry. I'm throwing a lot of letters and numbers at you, but you'll have that.
They will literally, once you decide on the courses that your child is going to be in, they'll hand you a sheet saying specifically what to select. So you can memorize these now, but there's no need.
There's lots of numbers and letters. This goes over the 4-year plan for each child. So each child that comes through our doors has credit requirements in order to receive a diploma. And this is really important information for you. I'm not going to go through all of it, but it's something that you should definitely take a look at. And the reason why it's very important is that essentially just to know that your son or daughter needs 4 years of English and 3 years of science and 3 years of math. And by state, we'll talk a little bit about world language. But our requirement for world language is 2 years. The state requirement is 1 year. We can get into that a little bit later. But this kind of gives you an overview of what the requirements are so that your child can have a diploma at the end of his or her time here at Hunterdon Central. Again, this is what the counselors actually build with your child. So they'll actually have a visual chart for the graduation requirements. And here's another a platform, if you will, for them to also build the 4-year plan. As I talked about world language really has many offerings. The Chinese, French, German, and Latin classes are all in the general education CP environment. We do have in-class resource for Spanish. That is for Spanish stairs. We have travel as well as careers. Spanish stairs is a 2-year sequence, but depending on what the needs are of your child, if they need 1 year because they might be Polytech bound, it's a conversation you can have with your case manager when you are here at Hunterdon Central. If your child is college bound, then you might have the conversation that they need 4 years of college, or of world language, I'm sorry. And so it really is very individualized to your child and what his or her needs are. In the special education self-contained programs, some of these world language requirements are actually embedded. And so it's a little different for those students in the EQUIPS and the ABA program. All exceptions are made for the IEP. So this just kind of gives you an overview of the alternatives to requirements. And so, yes, there's tons of requirements that you just saw on that screen, but at the end of the day, we are here to make sure that we're meeting your child where they are. And so again, having a conversation about what is necessary and needed for your child to be successful, and what is needed to be put into the IEP if there are alternative requirements. The high school case managers, they're going to be assigned over the summer, well, hopefully they're sent a little bit before the summer, but you will get a letter in the summer describing who your child's case manager is. It's going to come from our special services department. And there'll also be a counselor assigned to you at the start of each school year, and it's a separate mailing.
The case manager that attends the transitional meeting is often, if not usually, the case manager you'll have throughout high school, but that's not always the case. So, you know, don't be alarmed if you do see someone different, but we try and do that as best as possible.
Yeah, and they'll tell you. We're very transparent. We're wanting to make sure that you know, hey, I'm here as a representative, but I might not be your child case manager. We have tons and tons of supports here, and I can't say it enough, just in terms of the levels that we have for our classes, but also what we offer our students after school, during school. And so there is something called tutorial. If you've had children attend here before, that is between the hours of 2 and 2:50. That is done on a Monday, Wednesday, Thursday rotation during block 5, we call it. There's late bus availability, and you know, again, we work manager if your child needs supports during the after school time, and obviously sports and practices are often held between 3 and 5, but it's going to be dependent on field availability and all that fun stuff you can imagine in a big regional high school. There is some summer opportunities. There will be freshman orientation a week before school starts, typically. And it's often the Wednesday before school starts, but that often changes or can change. You can meet the principals, the VPs, nurses, counselors, and learn about the layout of the school, ID, get your son or daughter's ID picture, and walk in school staff, but also walk the schedule, which I realize is probably one of the most important things. And that's it.
One of the things I would like to add is the non-negotiable that we have in our special ed department is this notion of inclusion. When we talk about the after-school activities, one of the things we really take pride in is our Connect Club. And this is where you have general ed peers serving as mentors for some of our students in our self-contained programs. The group meets every Friday at lunch. We go out about 20 to 25 times a year, whether it's football games or plays or movie nights. It's very, very active, very, very engaged. We have unified electives where, again, you have general ed peers and even in students in the in-class support and academic studies, they're serving as mentors for our students in our self-contained programs in music, art, cooking, wood shop, and next year, like a technology class. In addition, we've got a very successful unified sports program for both soccer and basketball. We also have cheerleading and jump rope that participates at the basketball halftime shows. And we did win the state championship last year for basketball, where we got to play at Rutgers University, which was an incredible experience for the kids, something that we're really, really proud of here.
Yeah. So any questions or any thoughts that you have? We can field them this way, or we can you know, just hang back a little bit. If you'd like to take a tour, it's not a 3-hour tour, but if you'd like to take a tour, you absolutely can stick around and we can take a walk and we can show you some of our facilities. And we can get a little bit of an idea of what our school looks like at night, I guess. So any questions that we can answer for you?
What's the web page you're going to be on?
It's going to be our Hunterdon Central webpage, but if you signed in on the sign-in sheet, I'll make sure that I send it to you via email as well. And then I'll send, there's a little definitions page along with many links. The links take you to the course cheat sheet that I talked about, and will take you to a variety of different things. I didn't want to print it out because I had a bunch of links on there that you wouldn't be able to access on the printout, obviously.
For the music program, is the board one of the options?
I'm sorry, what?
Chorus?
Oh,
yeah,
excellent.
I think we've got like 3 or 4 different types of chorus.
Yeah.
So that's a very, very popular offering. And like I said, you'll work through that with the guidance counselor, but they'll definitely be able to set them up with that. It'll be one of the electives, correct? Yep.
The question for the people at home was, just so you know, that a parent had asked if chorus was an option. And we had said that chorus is absolutely an option. And we have a variety of different chorus classes. And so that's something that you can talk about with your the case manager as well. I will also add the electives sheet if I can find our updated 2026 school year. It doesn't always align updated with our meeting, so I might have to wait for a little bit, but I'll make sure that you get it or your case manager gets it.
Yeah, so one of the things I really want to emphasize is the sheer size of the building. It's 2,400 kids, 72-acre campus. One of the things we take a lot of pride in special ed is really creating an intimate environment. Your son or daughter is going to be so incredibly supported with a guidance counselor, case manager, and a VP that will follow them all 4 years. We have 2 behaviorists on staff, 2 speech pathologists on staff, case manager who, if they're not in the suite at that time, there's someone else who can pick up the slack. Annie and I are very, very involved with all the students that walk through that office. So as overwhelming and as intimidating as the school is, we really do a good job of making it feel small. And quite frankly, the students pick up the schedule and the location of the buildings twice as fast as any adult in the building.
Yeah.
It just there's a natural flow to it. It just takes a week or 2 to figure out.
The case managers stick around.
All 4 years. Yep, as well as the guidance counselor and the vice principal. The vice principal, actually, we have 2 campuses, the 910 building and the 1112. The vice principal and the guidance counselor will actually switch offices when they transition to 11th and 11th grade, just to stay with that and be in close proximity.
Great question.
Okay.
No, of course. And like I said, Annie and I will stick around for more individualized questions. And then if you hang tight for about 5-10 minutes, we'll do a tour of the general overview of what the school would look like.
We're just really excited to welcome your kids to the school. I can't say enough about our staff, our administration, and our teachers. They're just fantastic human beings that really care about kids. And to me, as a parent, that's what I need to know is there going to be a caring, kind person on the other end, making sure that your child is taken care of during the times that they're here. And believe me, we are absolutely here for your kids and can't wait to meet them. All right. Thank you so much.